EEKtober, everybody. We are doing 31 days of scary movies, and today is day 31. It's Halloween. We made it. I am your host, Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker, and when I speak, my topic is Take the Doughnut. It's another way to say Carpe Diem. It comes from this weird thing that happened in college where I left an actual donut on a table, but that became an object lesson for me and what it looks like to leave an opportunity behind. So now I don't want to do that anymore. I want to take the donut. From time to time, I'll give myself a take the donut challenge. I'll say that there's something that I want to go after and I'll make it official. I'll announce it to myself or the world publicly, however it goes, and that will hold me accountable to doing it. And this time I've opened up this Take the Doughnut challenge for anybody who wants to join. So here we are for 31 days of scary movies. Today is day 31. It is Halloween, and we are watching Hush. This is a double feature day. So we've also been watching Ready or Not. These are my top two favorite horror movies. But this one in this video that we're going to talk about is Hush. Now, this is a 2016 film. I believe there's another Hush out there in the world. This is the 2016 film. It was directed by Mike Flanagan. It was written by Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel. This is, of course, a home invasion film. This stars, so basically, there are 5 people in the film. I'm just going to name them all. It stars Kate Siegel as Maddie, John Gallagher Jr. as the man, Michael Trucco as John, Samantha Sloyan as Sarah, and Emma Graves as Max, for just like a second. If you liked this film, I'm so happy to hear that. I love this film. It's my favorite. There aren't any, this isn't a franchise. There aren't sequels in English. I believe there are a couple that they tried to do in India. It's what I found out on Wikipedia anyway. But if you do like this film, Mike Flanagan has a huge body of work at this point. There's a lot more Mike Flanagan stuff. I don't know that it all feels like this to me. And in fact, there aren't other Mike Flanagans on the EEKtober list because, a lot of his stuff is other subgenres. That is fun to watch, but this one is my favorite. So, but if you do like Mike Flanagan, he's done not only feature films, but he has also done TV limited series, more than one of them. In fact, one that will be referenced, a future one that will be referenced in this film, which is pretty cool for fans of Mike Flanagan. So his star is on the rise. He's a really exciting director in this space. He's been getting some really cool opportunities. He's been getting sort of the nod of approval from some other important figures in the horror community, Stephen King, for example. I believe he was just given the nod to do the next Exorcist movie. So, he's a fun one to watch in terms of what's happening in his career. Now, why is this my favorite horror movie of all time? First of all, I gravitate towards home invasion films because I've watched, I remember when I was really little, I watched some scary movies and they did scare me, and the images of those films kind of stuck with me. And then as I got into college, I started to, every now and then I would look for a movie that would scare me. And I was looking, I think, for the feeling of a jump scare, because for me, I connect the feeling of fear to physicality, especially remembering my gymnastics days when I felt fear in gymnastics. There was a very physical feeling that came with that. And so I was sort of looking for something like that when I looked for a scary movie. And the more I looked for scary movies, the less I found them, because you start to desensitize yourself to them, or at least I did. And so I started to look at horror movies like I look at other movies, and I looked at the way that I'm sharing things with you in EEKtober. I looked at camera angles and dialogue choices and atmosphere choices and pacing. And once you start looking at a horror film that way, it is probably not going to scare you quite as much for the most part. And so I was watching more and more and getting scared less and less. But I found that the most effective films for me still are home invasion films. There's at least a tension that they're able to hold for me throughout the film. And this is my favorite home invasion film. And I've thought a lot about why that is. I think the number one reason for this is that there is a smart female protagonist. You know, I love a good smart female protagonist. There are some other films from EEKtober that you can check out. In fact, Ready or Not, that is the double feature, you know, for today. That also has a smart protagonist that you can check out. You know, the Scream franchise, I enjoy that one for the same reason. So there are films on my list where you can find smart female protagonists. But this one works even more effectively for me because Maddie is at a disadvantage. Maddie has a disability. Maddie cannot hear. She's smart, but she cannot hear. And so I respect her, but I want to protect her. I want her to be okay even more because of the fact that she's at a disadvantage in this film. So something about that combination really, I don't know, it inspired a protectiveness in me that makes me more invested in the film than I normally would be. Having said that, I mean, she's smart, but I mean, she lives in the cabin in the woods. What are you going to do with that? Now, in the film, they kind of allude to the fact that it wasn't exactly her choice, and we don't know much about why it wasn't her choice. But look, I live in an apartment complex, and you best believe I've given this thought. Like, I'm not saying the reason why I live in an apartment complex is horror movies, but it does feel validating to know that, like, you know, if I just shout a little bit, I've got people on either side of me who can probably hear me. There's a lot of people around me. If I screamed, I'd be noticed. Now, if you want to make a really scary film, find a way to make me believe home invasion in an apartment can happen, and I will lose my mind. If that's already happened, I guess send me the name of the video, the name of the movie that I need to watch, because that would be horrible. But okay, so that is a factor that I'm considering. Now, let's talk a little bit about Kate Siegel. One of the, I'm going to say the biggest criticism of this film nowadays is that Kate Siegel herself is not deaf. People want to see this character represented by a deaf actress. The people who have a problem with this film, that is generally what they are saying and why they have a problem with it. And granted, there may also be other people who just don't find it scary. That's a different issue altogether. This is sort of the PR issue behind this film. And if that is an issue that you have with this film, look, I get it. We're looking at this. We've got a 2024 lens on, maybe, or whenever you came to this, you wanted to see representation here. But here's the thing. That wasn't going to happen for this film. This was really early. This was relatively early in Mike Flanagan's career. It was relatively early-ish in the partnership with Kate Siegel. Kate's an actor. She co-wrote the film. This was always going to be something that Kate Siegel would be acting in as the lead. This was, if it wasn't going to happen that somebody else would be cast in this role, I can't imagine that it would have been. Like, let's just be honest. If what you wanted was somebody else playing this role, that wouldn't have happened. They just would have made the character not deaf at all. That would have been the solution at this point in their career. Now, I think if you asked Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel now if they would make this film again in that same way, I imagine that you'd get a very thoughtful answer and possibly a different answer, and they'd be later in their careers and they've had their big breaks. This was a break for them. This was an opportunity for them that they created themselves. So, you know, I'm so sorry for the people who wanted to see representation from a deaf actor here. And I hope that there are other films that you can enjoy that feel right to you. And this wasn't going to be that way. But I do understand. I understand the concern about it. Having said that, you know, for me, it does not take me out of the film. I feel very, very invested in Maddie. I feel like I have a real respect for Maddie. I think when she is speaking, her language is beautiful. I don't know. For me, it was informative in terms of some of the considerations that ways that I walk through life that I never really think about it any other way. And this film, in the filmmaking and the artistic way it shows her disability, really gave me a better sense of some things I've never considered about not being able to hear. So I don't know, take that for what you will. Okay, having said all of those things, here's probably my biggest thing I'm like, not so sure about with the film. Mask versus no mask. I remember the first time I watched this film, and I really found it creepy when the man had the mask on. And the moment he took the mask off, just a little bit of the air came out for me. Definitely not enough to really impact how good I feel about the film. And it's definitely still my favorite horror film, but it did just take a little bit of the tension away from me. But I have a friend that I've spoken to about this film who loves horror films said that's when it ramped up for her, because then it was like, no, he's definitely going to kill her now. So I don't know. I guess it's viewer's choice. I'd be curious if there's a split here, like if there's more of a trend in either direction. Do people feel more or less scared, or more or less tension when he takes off the mask? I don't know. For me, on a first watch, I was like, meh. But still, awesome movie. One thing that I've thought about a little bit, that I've heard Mike Flanagan talk about the making of this film, and I've heard Kate Siegel talk about the making of this film, and they were right. So they wrote the film. They didn't have the house yet, and they wrote the script for the film, and then they found the house, and then they had to tweak the script, because once you see the house, obviously the house is a character in this film. The house, the ins and outs of this house are actually pivotal to the plot of this film. And so understanding what features you're working with is going to change the circumstances, the scenarios a little bit. But one thing that they said was that really you need an interesting house, because the moment you got Maddie into an exposed area, the movie was kind of done. He had a crossbow. He could just shoot her. So if once we get into an exposed area, the movie ends. So how do you keep her in the house, and how do you keep interesting things continuing to happen in the house? And that's something that makes me look at the house differently, because I'm fascinated by this house. How many doors, how many windows? There's the roof that, like we go through so much of the film before we even see that she's got like a loft upstairs, and we're continuing to be exposed to new areas. And I really think they stretched this house for as much as they possibly could. It also made me think a little bit more about the movie Downrange, which is also on the EEKtober list. And it's on my list for a different reason that you'll have to hear about when you get there. But what was interesting to me is that I had already seen this film and heard all of these things about it before I watched Downrange. And then Downrange is mostly set in an exposed area. So I thought, whoa, okay, what do you do with that? And I was kind of amazed how much that film stretched their scenario as well. So very, very creative stuff. Those are all the general notes that I wanted to share before we get into the scenes, but let's talk about the replay of this, the recap of this movie. We're going to start with, so many horror films start with like we're really far away from everybody. So we're going to get like a crash, and then we're going to get hush on screen, and we're going to be looking over trees because we're in the woods. And then the camera's going to go down into the trees, and then we're going to hear some wind, and then we're going to zoom in on a house in the woods. I don't know, maybe this is a crane shot that I'm looking at here. And then we're going to go into the house. We're in the kitchen. Somebody is cooking. And so we're going to get these beautiful artistic shots, really close-up shots of different things that make noise in the kitchen. The stove turning on, the wine pouring, the cutting of onions, the cracking of an egg, the smashing of garlic, the sauteing of asparagus, the sort of crackling sound of lamb ribs in the oven. And so all of these different kitchen-related cooking sounds, and just beautifully depicted here. And then we're going to get somebody is reading a recipe on a screen And then we see the reflection of the person reading the recipe. It's Maddie. We see her face in the recipe. And now the camera is going to show us Maddie front on, and then it's going to come around to the back of her, and we're going to look over her shoulder. And now we're in her point of view. And as we're coming around to the over the shoulder shot, the sound gets muffled and then it becomes muted. And we actually can't hear any of the things that we were just hearing. And then we're going to see the continuation of these cooking shots again, but this time there's no sound coming from them. I thought this, the first time I saw this, I remember thinking, what a cool, interesting way to show us, well, give us a sense of what it would be like to be in her shoes or in her body. And like, it really made me experience it for a second. And I've never had the experience before. So it made me look at the rest of the film differently. For me, this was a really effective way to open this. So we get the sound back and she tastes her food and it is not good. Maddie apparently isn't much of a cook, even to her own tastes. We're going to see a message pop up on the screen where she's reading the recipe. It's a message from Sarah next door, and she wants to stop by. Maddie is seeing the battery is getting low, so she's going to plug the device onto a table, a nightstand in the living room. Actually, kind of an important thing for her to do because we need to see a bunch of the things that are on this table. Some of them are Easter eggs and some of them are important. So there's this table. It's an end table. No, it's just a table. And it's got, first of all, a bunch of books on it. The one we can see most clearly is Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes. I feel like something that I love about this is it feels like something that gives me hope as a human, that you can put a message out to a hero of yours and maybe someday that person can respect your work so much that they're like, you do a remake of The Shining, you go take Dr. Sleep, because I trust you that you'll do. Stephen King hated The Shining because Stanley Kubrick took some departures from his intentions in the book, but Mike Flanagan got the nod when he did Dr. Sleep. And so there's a good relationship there. And so I love that we've got this little like love letter to Stephen King, just right front and center in the film. Okay, and then Maddie, she's going to plug in this laptop. We see the book of Stephen King. We see a picture of Maddie and her family, and then we see there's like a corkscrew under it, which makes you think there's a sentimental value to that corkscrew. And then Maddie's going to try to feed her cat. Not really totally sure where the cat is. Neighbor Sarah walks over and she's like, okay, no flames in the kitchen. That's great. So Sarah knows that you don't come over to Maddie's for food. So they're going to have a whole conversation outside on the porch. Sarah is trying to learn sign language. She's talking, she's relatively competent. She's getting a lot out. She's far beyond the basics, I think. And they're having a conversation. We learn that Maddie can read lips, but she signs, and it's great when people can sign. Sarah had read Maddie's book. Maddie is an author, and she comes back over. She's holding it. She's finished it. She wants to return it. The book is called Midnight Mass. For people who aren't familiar with Mike Flanagan's body of work, Midnight Mass is a limited series he eventually did create. So that has now come out more recently. And in fact, the characters that Sarah says she loves are in fact the character names that exist in the limited series. So, it's pretty cool to see, once again, dropping hints about other projects that are on the way. Sarah loved the book, she loved the characters, but she couldn't guess the ending. How do you come up with the endings? Maddie says, occupational hazard. See, it's a thing that my mom calls writer's brain. Any possible outcome is like a movie in my head, and there's all these different endings happening. It's very frustrating. She can't quiet the voices. Sarah says, oh, that's interesting. You have voices in your head? She's like, yeah. She says, well, does it sound like a child? Because we're going to find out that Maddie lost her hearing at 13 from bacterial meningitis. So at one point, she knew what everybody's voice. She had heard all of these sounds, so she has something to map onto the things she can't hear now. She says, no, my voice doesn't sound like a child. My voice sounds like my mom's voice, which is absolutely necessary because Kate Siegel is going to be the one doing the voiceover. This can't be a child's voice. Okay, so she says, okay, well, you're a really good storyteller, but she uses the word for kisser instead. So we get a little joke there. And all of this is distracting them. And then Sarah is going to see that the kitchen inside is filling with smoke. Oh no. And the fire alarm has started going off, and it's a very loud fire alarm with a flashing light attached to it. They go in. Sarah's going to attend to whatever's in the oven, the lamb ribs. Maddie can't hear this, but she can feel the vibrations, and then she sees the flashing, and she's going to take care of the fire alarm. So to fix the situation, the cat is in the house, but the cat is like, I'm out now. Nope, cat leaves. They are now going to be hanging out on the porch as it's getting darker. Sarah's like, yeah, sorry about the fact that your food's ruined now. If you want, you can come over for dinner and a movie. That'd be great, right? John's going to be home in an hour. Maddie's like, you know what? I need to work. Probably better if I stay here. So Sarah's going to leave. And she gets a message from Craig, who we'll never actually meet. He thought of her today. She deletes it. Okay, so she doesn't really want to hear from Craig. She's going to put her phone on the island in the kitchen. We are going to see a picture of her family and copies of Midnight Mass again. And then we're going to see her bio, because we're basically scrolling back through that nightstand or end table, I guess it would be. We're going to see on the book jacket, there's her bio, and that's where we learn about the fact that she had contracted bacterial meningitis at 13, and that's how she lost her hearing. And now it's nighttime. We start outside the house. We're sort of panning across, and then we pan through some furniture, and we see Maddie sitting in the living room, and she's working on her laptop. She's kind of blocked on the ending. She's going through different iterations of an ending, different files that she saved under the name Sweetwater. So I guess that's meant to be the name of the next work. She opens up FaceTime because it's much better to procrastinate than do that. So she's going to call Craig and then hang up real quick. Oh, it was a bad move. And Craig's going to try to call her back. She's like, no. So she ignores him. She goes to the kitchen and starts to clean up because, once again, does not want to have to think about the ending of Sweetwater. Who wants to write when they can procrastinate, right? Okay, so she goes to the kitchen. She starts cleaning up. And then we're going to see just outside the house, the camera is set up on the porch looking like across the side of the porch so that we can see as Sarah runs up to the, like, I guess, the door that's closest to where Maddie's standing, which there are actually 3 doors along this wall, which is terrifying because they're all glass and none of them have a curtain. There's on either end, there's a door with a latch, and in the middle, there's a sliding door. And the 2 on the end are on either side of the island. So Sarah has run up to a door with a latch closest to where Maddie's standing. But Maddie doesn't hear this because her back is turned and she's working on cleaning up the kitchen, and Sarah is screaming. She's crying for help. She's pounding on the door, trying to get Maddie's attention. And then we are going to see that she gets shot with an arrow. And a masked man comes up behind her. Again, we're looking at all this from the side. A masked man comes up behind her and he grabs her and he's going to turn her around. He's going to stab her in the stomach. And he keeps stabbing her in the stomach. And now he's starting to smash her body into the door, which is rattling the door. But Maddie doesn't hear any of this. And we know why, but the person who's killing Sarah doesn't know. Very interesting. It catches his attention. So he's like trying to jam Sarah against the door to try to get the attention of the person inside. And she's not even flinching. She's not even noticing any of this is happening. So he lets Sarah drop to the ground, and then he's just standing there watching her, and he taps on the door and he knocks on the door. Maddie doesn't turn for any of this. So, okay, fair enough. He'll come back. He drags Sarah off of the porch. He gets her to some other location. He's left she's dripped some blood on the porch, though. Maddie's phone is now going to ring. It's Craig calling. She ignores it. She leaves her phone on the kitchen counter, the island. And it's this bright red phone. She's going to go back to the living room. She's going to go back to working on the book. She opens her laptop, and as she's sitting with her back to sort of her shoulder, the side of her shoulder to the door, we see the sliding door open. And the man is standing there watching her. And he comes in and he pulls out his knife and he starts tapping it, making noise, tapping it on things to try to make noise. Maddie isn't noticing. He's standing right behind her, and she does not notice any of this. She's currently writing about how crappy a writer she is, blah, 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 like this book sucks, that kind of stuff. She writes the end, get money now. And then she's going to get a FaceTime. So the masked man, he's going to go to the side. He's going to move off to the side. She greets her. She's signing, but she's also speaking aloud. So he's going to get the exposition he needs, the stuff that we actually already know. She greets him. She says, "Hi, Squish." That's her nickname for her sister. Maddie says she's stuck with an ending. She can't figure out what to do with it. She says, speaking of endings, she's like, Craig texted. Max says, "Yeah, that was a bad ending, wasn't it?" So, it's been a year. Mom's been asking, like, when you're going to get back out there. Maddie says, "Well, I've signed up for a dating app for online dating for people who are deaf, but there's only like 4 people in my whole area. So, nope, not a thing." Maddie says, "I mean, don't you miss the city?" She says, "Come back and live with me. I worry about you. It's not good for anyone to be so alone, Squish." And then we're going to see from further behind Maddie, we see the masked man grab her phone off of the kitchen island. But the laptop is pointed in such a way that our sister should be able to see this too, but it's probably really small. So Maddie says at this point, "Isolation happened to me. I didn't pick it." I don't know what that means. I don't know what happened with Craig. I don't know if they were living there together and she sent him out the door. I'm not sure, but it helps me a little bit that she didn't choose to live in a cabin in the woods alone. Because otherwise I think she's super smart. But okay. So Max is like, wait. Who was that? Maddie says, "What?" She says, "Behind you, something moved." And Maddie's like, it was, I'm sure it was just the cat. I have to find her. So they're going to sign off. And unfortunately, that's probably unlikely because the cat ran out of the door earlier and now the door is closed. So I don't know how the cat would be back inside. But, that would be the only real explanation. It's the simplest explanation to understand why something was moving in her house. Maddie's going to go look for the cat, but the sliding door is still closed. That's weird. So she starts checking around the different rooms, which gives us a chance to get a lay of the land. It's a small house. There aren't a lot of spaces here. We've seen the kitchen and the living room. It's open plan. There's a bedroom that she's going to check. There's a bathroom off of the bedroom. And there's an upstairs loft as well. And she checks all of those places, doesn't find the cat. She comes down. She's going to open the sliding door. She's shaking the food. No cat. She just leaves it by the door. She leaves the door open because the cat does need to come back inside. So she's going to put on a jacket and wait for the cat to come in. She goes back to her laptop and she opens up the file with the book. She gets a message from her phone. This is where we begin to ramp up. So pictures come through in this message, and they're pictures of Maddie in her apartment from minutes ago, from inside her apartment, from inside a closet, looking into the bedroom. And then now the last picture she gets is basically standing by the sliding door. Maddie is going to real slow. She's going to turn her head because in theory, the person could be kind of right, like, I don't know, less than 10 feet away from her on the other side of the same room. She is going to get up very slowly. She is going to very slowly, she doesn't walk towards the door. She walks further into the kitchen so she can get a better look at the other, like what's on the other side of the door. Good call. Either that or like maybe consider going out the back door, but I don't know. You don't know where the person is. This could be a distraction. So she slowly looks to see what's on the other side of the door, and then she sees a masked man, a man with this mask. It's a white mask. It just covers the face, like perfectly. It was like perfectly fitted to John Gallagher Jr.'s face, and it has just this little bit of a smile. Okay, so she sees this man. He has her phone. She is going to run to close the door, and he's going to, run to the door from his side, and she closes and locks the sliding door. Then she's going to close and lock, she's going to lock the other living room door. And then she's like, oh my gosh, there's the other lockable door on the other side of the island. So she tries to run to it. He gets to it first, but it is already locked. So, okay, he'll find another avenue. He has to explore a little bit. So he's going to go down the porch stairs. He's going to walk around the house. And then she's like, oh, he's going to the back door. So he's going to run to the back door, and she's going to run to the back door, and she's going to lock it. She tries to dial 911 for her, I don't know what the program is, but she's trying to dial it from her computer through Wi-Fi. He shuts off the power, so there's no power to the Wi-Fi, so that's now not an option anymore. She's then like, oh, maybe I can get into Sarah and John's Wi-Fi. So she checks that, but she's not able to get into it. And he is watching her from the window, and he is trying to do the same thing with his phone to see if she is able to access their Wi-Fi. And since he can't, she probably can't. So he is going to then take the bloody knife that, there's blood from Sarah on it, and he's just scratching it along the window, which she can't hear, but freaks out everybody who can hear it. Okay, so then she's going to watch him slash her tires so she can't get away in her car. Tears are rolling down her face. She knows exactly how doomed she is in this situation. She's sort of circling around, like, what do I do? There's so many windows and doors in this house. It is absolutely stunning how many windows and doors there are, and how none of them have curtains or blinds or shades. She is going to go into she has a bag of stuff on the kitchen island. She gets lipstick and a flashlight, and she's going to write on the sliding door, and then she's going to shine a flashlight at it to attract the man. And what it says is, won't tell, didn't see face, boyfriend coming home. His face, he pops out from the side of the door, and we see his face just behind the writing. I really like how they lined up that shot. I like where they placed him, with his face lit by the flashlight, and then the lipstick like right in front of him, just perfectly done. So she is gonna, he's seen the message. He stands there, reads it. He thinks for a second. He removes his hat. He's got a little beanie on. He removes his mask, and there's this sound design here. It's kind of like a didgeridoo-ish sound, which I like very much. It's eerie. And he makes sure that she can read lips. She confirms it. He says, well, you've seen it now, haven't you? And he looks down at the boyfriend part, which he knows isn't real because he just heard the message, the phone conversation between her and Max. And so he repeats it. He says, seriously, Maddie, maybe you can come back and live with me. I worry about you. It's not good for anyone to be so alone, Squish. So she knows that he was inside and heard all of that, and he knows like nobody's coming for her. He says, I can come in anytime, and I will, but I'm not going to, not until it's time. When you wish you're dead, that's when I'll come inside. Do you understand? She gets it. He says, okay, then we can have some fun. Enjoy it. He walks away. There are a couple times in this film where I almost feel, and this is going to be an absolutely, I need to pick my words carefully on this. I think that he feels like almost a sexual attraction through this stalking process. There are a couple times in this film that I almost feel like he's seducing her, but that's obviously not what's happening, but in his mind. And when he says this, he's like, the way he says, then we can have some fun, enjoy it. It's almost like the way he delivers it is like you could be setting up for a different scene in a different movie that's not a horror movie. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. There's another scene later that really makes me think of this, but I don't know. I see a little bit of that undertone in this as well. He walks away from the door, so he can get her anytime, but he's going to walk away for now. He needs to mess with her some other way first. She's going to shut off the flashlight. She's sitting there. She's thinking. She grabs a knife from the kitchen. She grabs a hammer from a bunch of supplies under, like, where there's a bunch of cleaning supplies. She is going to take all of that. She's going to look around at the different windows. She's trying to figure out where he might be. She goes into the bedroom. She shuts the door of the bedroom. She pulls a dresser in front of it. She closes. There are curtains over the two windows in the bedroom, so she's going to close those. She's going to sit next to the window, one of the windows, and she's staring at the door, the bedroom door, thinking that's the way this guy would come in. We're going to see a shadow approaching the window. She sees it too. And then we're going to see a rhythmic knocking on the window. And we start to sort of we come around a little bit to see what's knocking on the window. And it's actually Sarah, her dead friend. Her hand is sort of like at an awkward angle and she's knocking her hand against the window, but it's not Sarah that's doing that. Maddie looks and she can see that the man is propping Sarah up and knocking her hand against the window. Maddie's freaked out. She drops the hammer. She's still got the knife, but she drops the hammer, and it's a good thing she did that. She's going to leave the bedroom. She's going to pull the dresser back out, leave the bedroom, shut the door, and the man waves Sarah's hand, kind of like this. So now she falls back into the living room. She's crying because now she just learned Sarah's dead. We can't hear her now. We're going to get every now and then we'll get a noiseless moment in terms of the sound design. So we can't hear her at this moment. She's staring at the bedroom door, and then we hear a whoosh sound and we can hear sound again. Maddie remembers something. Okay. All right. Sarah's dead, really bad, but she remembered Sarah putting her phone back in her pocket when she was leaving the house. So, okay, maybe she can get her phone. Maybe that's an option. So Maddie needs to create another distraction. She's going to go back to that bag of stuff she has on the kitchen island. She's going to grab her car keys. She sits back sort of on the other side of the kitchen island at the furthest door, and she's trying to turn on the car alarm, but she can't from this far away. She keeps inching closer, and then she has to open the door and reach out so that she can turn on the car alarm. And finally it goes off. And so the man starts to walk to the car. She needs to know where he is. She needs to get him away from the back door, and from the bedroom window, I should say. And so he goes to the car to figure out how to shut off the alarm. She runs to the bedroom window. She's reaching through the bedroom window, trying to get the phone out of Sarah's back pocket. She keeps feeling for the phone. She can't find the phone. And then the man, he breaks the car window. He shuts the alarm, and he comes back and he finds her leaning out the window trying to get this phone. And she pulls herself back in real quick. He runs to the window and he tries to reach inside the window, and she shuts it on his hands. And the thing is, like, his hands are in there. So he's now trying to lift the window, and he's stronger than her. So he's winning. And she realizes, like, oh, okay, I need another option. She sees the hammer is still in the room. So she lets go of the window and now he's able to lift it, but she reaches down, grabs a hammer, and as he is reaching in, she basically slices at him with the pointy side of the hammer, like the lever side of the hammer, and she sticks it in his arm. So now he's got his first injury. That's something. And he is, screaming in pain. And he pulls his arms back. She shuts the window. She locks the window. And he's going to grab his knife. It might have been Sarah's knife, the one that she was holding. No, it was the one that he stabbed into Sarah. And he is going to cut off a piece of Sarah's clothing, her shirt, and he wraps it around his new wound. But Maddie is watching this, and so he's going to pull out, he's got Sarah's phone. He pulls that out and he shows her, like, yep, I've got her phone. And then, just for good measure, just to taunt her, he leaves it on top of Sarah. It's like, you just try to get that again. Let's see what happens to you. Then he does something that will have more context with a later kill, but he's then going to take off Sarah's earring, and he's taking it because I guess he has a souvenir from every single kill. Like, I guess whenever he kills somebody, he takes something, some accessory from them, and then he makes a little notch in his crossbow. So he's taking an earring from Sarah. And he's watching Maddie as he's doing it, and she just turns and walks away. She walks out of the bedroom. She can't hear him. He's pounding on the door, but she can't hear him. She shuts the bedroom door and goes into the living room. She's panting. She's thinking, new plan is needed here. We get the man walking around the house. She's going to hide behind the kitchen island, anywhere she can hide to prevent him from seeing her. She then goes to the sliding door. She hides next to it, and he comes up to the sliding door. His face is right next to hers, but he can't see her. And then he goes around the house again. She goes out the sliding door and hides under there's an elevated stairs with like a crawl space underneath it. She gets under it, but I don't know. What do you do from here once you're under this crawl space? Like, it's not in a place he might expect initially, but where do you go from there? But she's trying it. So he then goes up the stairs that she's hiding under to go back onto the porch, and she can feel the vibrations. He's walking around, then he stands directly over her. He goes back down the stairs. He walks around the house again, and she's going to make a run for it. But he has a crossbow, and so he's going to shoot over her head. And then she's like, oh my God. So she runs back in the house, back up the porch, and into the house through the sliding door. As she's shutting the sliding door, he's going to shoot the crossbow, and the crossbow is going to stick into the door, or right next to the door. And, but she shut the door. So she got that done. He's going to come back. He's going to grab his arrow. He's going to tap it against the door, like, oh, I can get you anytime I want. And he walks back down the stairs. So Maddie is now going to go up to the loft. We need to see this space now. To me, I kind of wish I could see this room all at once, because it looks like another room, but she's calling it a loft. There are two exterior windows on either side of the room that we can see. And then we see there's also like an interior window. It looks like an actual, like a pass-through or a window that looks into the living room, where she can then see like the sliding door and all of that. So she's in this space. She checks the window. She's looking for him. She checks through the pass-through. She finds him looking through the sliding door. So he's on that side of the house. So she's going to go to a window on the opposite side. She's going to crank it open. She's going to get out very carefully, but as quietly as she can. She's going to walk to the edge of the house, and she's going to throw a lit flashlight into the woods, into the trees. So you can see the light as it's sort of flipping end over end into the trees. It's a distraction. So he goes to check out to see what just happened. And as he walks in that direction, she now walks across the roof. She walks very delicately across the gutter, and then she's trying to get to a trellis so that she can climb down the trellis and presumably run the other direction away from the house. And so she starts to climb down the trellis. And he comes back. How do we know? Because he shoots her in the leg with his crossbow. So we got like an arrow sticking into her leg now. And she is in pain. She climbs back up the trellis. She looks to see where he is. She checks down over the edge of the roof, and he's got his crossbow loaded and ready again. And he fires another arrow up at her. And what a cool moment. She like sort of lays back. She was kneeling. She lays back, and the arrow shoots right up over her face. A near miss for sure. He is now climbing the trellis. She pulls the arrow out of her leg very painfully, and he is still climbing. She can feel the vibrations of him coming up. So she sort of waits. She's sort of lurking. And as he gets to the top, he puts the crossbow onto the roof so that he can pull himself up without that extra weight. He puts the crossbow onto the roof, and she grabs it from him and punches him, and he falls back onto the ground below. So now she has the crossbow. And so she points the crossbow at him, and he's like, okay. He comes back up the trellis, and she crosses the roof. She crosses over the gutter, crosses the roof, limping the whole way, in a lot of pain. She gets back to the window she had opened that she had come out of before. She throws the crossbow in, she throws herself in, she falls into a heap on the floor in the loft, and then she very quickly cranks the window closed, and it gets closed just as he gets up to the window. And you can see his breath. He's breathing on the window. He's going to go back the way he came, but at least she's got the weapon now. He's kind of impressed. He's a little impressed by that. Maddie's hurting. She's bleeding. So she's going to need a minute to take care of her wound. She's going to go to the bathroom downstairs. She's attending to the wound. She's crying. She's making a bit of a tourniquet for her leg. She picks up the crossbow, and she sees that it has all these hash marks on it. Kind of in an interesting, so there's one hash mark, then there's a 5 with the one hash like pointed in one direction. There's another 5 with the last one pointed in the other direction, and then there's another 2. So I don't know what the difference is. Like, I don't know if this is men and women. I don't know how he's separated this out. But anyway, it looks like he's killed 13 people. And he's decided some sort of a classification on that. It's pretty sobering. And she's realizing like what a hardened criminal this guy actually is. She's trying to load the crossbow, which is so hard to do. And in fact, she maybe could use the tutorial that Fitch is trying to get in Ready or Not. If you haven't seen that film, be sure to check that out, because it's also on this EEKtober list for today as a double feature. It's taking all of her strength to try to figure out how to load this crossbow, and she can't seem to do it. He's watching her through the window, and he's like, yeah, not so easy, is it? We're going to see neighbor John. He's knocking on the door now. We need an interruption here. We need another person coming to the house. And remember, Sarah had a boyfriend who was supposed to come home in about an hour, and here he is. So John is knocking on the kitchen door, and then another kitchen door, the sliding door, and he's calling for Sarah. The house is completely dark, which is confusing. He's trying to open the sliding door. He can't. He sees Maddie's message on the sliding door. Yeah, that's bad. That's an alarming message to see. And then we're going to see the man come around the house with a flashlight. He's like, on the ground, drop it. He's pretending to be police. He never says it initially. He just says, on the ground, drop it. John's like, it's just a phone. I'm calling the cops. The man's like, hands where I can see him, hands where I can, on your knees. So John like responds appropriately. He says, oh, I'm the neighbor. I'm coming to look for my girlfriend. The man's like, well, show me some ID. John puts his phone down. He gives the man his wallet. The man checks his wallet. John's thinking this is a little weird. This guy didn't identify himself as police. The man says, sorry to scare you. I responded to a call. I found the place like this. There was somebody inside. He came running past me and knocked me out. And then I woke up. I didn't have my gun or my phone or my radio. I need a call for backup. So he wants John's phone. He says, do you know who lives here? John's like, Maddie, our friend. The man's like, well, does she live alone? John says, yep. My girlfriend comes here all the time. The man says, well, what's her name? John's like, Sarah. Like, it's a little off in terms of the types of questions he's getting and the way that this information is coming out. But also, the man knows a little bit about Maddie. So he's like sort of steering himself in a decent direction in terms of not raising too many red flags right away. The man says, okay, can I use your phone to call for backup? I should have called it in before, but I just started the job. He's like, when I got here, John says, are you the police? The man's like, deputy, barely. John's a little skeptical of all this. The guy's like, well, I can call the sheriff if I can use your phone. And so John's going to give him his phone. The man is going to call in a 719, whatever that is. He's like explaining the situation. He's like, no one else is here, but a neighbor did show up. John is looking at the message on the door. Again, a sobering statement. The man, he's like, did you see this? The man's like, yeah, I did see that. And he's going to put John's phone in his pocket. Ew. The man's like, so this girl, does she have a boyfriend? John says, no. The man's like, any family nearby? Anybody who could have access to the house? John says, no. And he sees the wound that the guy has in his arm from when Maddie struck him with the hammer. And he's like, your arm okay? The man's like, yeah, the guy plowed into me. Must have been about your size, a jock, like a linebacker. John asks for his phone back. Good looking out, John. Man's like, oh yeah, stupid, force of habit. Sorry about that. He pulls out the phone to give it back to John. And with it comes Sarah's earring, which drops to the ground. And John sees that. He knows something's up here. John's like, okay, so you responded to a call from Maddie? The man's like, oh, from the dispatcher. And they're sort of circling each other a little bit here. The man says, somebody called it in. I assumed it was the resident. John has put a little bit of distance between himself and the man. He says, yeah, she can't make that call. She's deaf and mute. And the man's like, huh, your girlfriend maybe. He knows enough where he didn't make the mistake of saying that Maddie called. He said the dispatcher called, but somebody would have had to call the dispatcher. So like, John's like, yeah, this doesn't check out. Meanwhile, we see Maddie. She's still in the bathroom. She's working on the crossbow. She can't do it though. She's crying. John, go back to John. He is suspicious. The man's like, yeah, deaf, mute, huh? Really rough. Has she always been unable to hear? John's like, no, since she was a teenager. The man's looking around. He's like, yeah, to live alone like this, must be able to get by. John says, you know, I think she has a spare key on the porch in the little planter. He's going to point. He wants the man to have something to do. He wants to distract him. So the guy's like, oh, over here? John says, yeah. John's like, who do you think it was? Man's like, well, I don't know, but they probably got the hell out of here if it was called in. John says, really trashed her car, huh? Look at that. Once again, the man is going to look in that direction, gives John a chance to pick up a rock. Fairly big one. John says, so how long till the cavalry arrive? The man's like, oh, 10 to 15. He's glad you found me when you did, because I would have just been bleeding. He says, so in here, you said, in this planter? John's like, I think so. And he's just waiting for the man to bend down to go to the planter because he wants to smash him over the head with the rock. And so the man does bend down to look at the planter and to get the key. And John is just reaching for the rock to go grab and smash it over this guy's head when, unfortunately, this is when Maddie comes to the sliding door and she's pounding on it. She's trying to get John's attention, like, don't, this man's dangerous. And John looks, and unfortunately, the man doesn't hesitate. He sticks him in the neck with a knife. And now John's bleeding. He's bleeding out. And Maddie is watching this, and John is trying to attack this man. The man's like, it's done. It's done. Like, you're going to be dead in like moments. He stabs John in the leg again, and John's still putting up a good fight. And the man's like, yeah, whew, pretty glad she showed up when she did. Thank you. That was great because this guy's too big for me. You would have won that fight. John is bleeding out. Nope, he has one last burst of strength. He's going to fight again. He's going to bring the man down. He's trying to strangle him. He's trying to tell Maddie to run. Maddie is going to go to the back door. And we stop on her face for just a moment. And then we're going to see different scenarios get played out, always coming back to her kind of looking out the door. So she stops at the door, but then we see her run out the door and get caught by the man, and he bludgeons her with the rock until she's dead. He's sitting on top of her. He kills her with a final blow, and she's dead. And you're like, that can't be. There's still a whole bunch of the movie left. And then she looks to the camera, breaking the fourth wall, sort of. But she's speaking to herself. She says, you can't run. She has this echoey voice. So this is where she plays out different endings in her head. She's doing it now. So she says, you can't run. We see her face as she's looking out the back door. So we know this is still in her head. We see that image of her with the man on top of her outside. You see that disappear, or they disappear and the outside is still there. She lets go of the back door knob. That's not going to work. John has been trying to fight the man, but he dies before he can kill him. So now the guy is just catching his breath. Maddie sits down. She's in the kitchen. She's like, okay, that wasn't an option. I can't outrun him on this leg. The crossbow, I have the crossbow, but that has to be the perfect shot in the heart or the brain. It's a long distance weapon. It's not good indoors, and you'd have to be close to land a kill shot. So that doesn't really work. And plus, he'll be moving. You can't even load it. She says, okay, or I could go outside. I could turn the power back on, but I don't know. He could have flipped the switch or cut the wires. And then we're going to see the image of her trying that. And he comes up behind her and slits her throat. She says, okay, well, hiding. Well, I tried hiding. There's a bedroom, the bathroom, the loft. They all have a window. He just needs a rock to get in. The loft doesn't have any cover. There are no doors to barricade. She says, okay, and best case scenario, you do hide and you stay hidden forever and you bleed to death. Okay, that doesn't work. We see the image of her sort of in the corner of the loft, dead, because she bled out. She says, okay, how about outside? There's the crawl space. He knows you tried that. There's not really that much room there. And if he finds you, and then we see the image of him pulling her out from underneath the crawl space by her legs. She's like, if he finds you, you don't last long. She says, okay, let's take stock of this. You're cold, you're dizzy, you're sweaty, your fingernails are blue, your vision is going, you're running out of time here. He's going to come in, and once he's in the house, it's over. He has the advantage. He can hear you. So she's really laid it all out for us. It doesn't happen very often that somebody can have that dialogue and to us at a critical moment in a movie like this. So it is interesting to hear her articulate all of her options so that we know why she thinks what she's going with is the best option. It's an advantage for this movie, actually, that they do that, because so often we're like, these people are stupid, but now she's actually like taking us through her thought process. So she says, you can't run, can't hide, can't wait. If you go outside, you're dead. We see him in one of the visions stab her outside that crawl space. She says, too many endings, but they're all the same. There's only one ending he won't expect. And then she signs, kill him. So the man is getting a token from John. He pulls off his watch. He says, yeah, I never would have won that fight. He's going to get John cigarettes. He's like, these things will kill you. Once again, I'm loving the symmetry between this and Ready or Not. John is going to grab a crowbar from Maddie's trunk. He sits on the hood, he smokes, and he's looking at John. He's like, so what do you think, John? Should I go in there and get this over with? Yeah, you're probably right. Should wait a little longer till she's lost more blood. I don't want to attempt a shot in case her aim is better than her judgment. I see nothing wrong with her judgment in this film. Again, aside from living in a cabin in the woods alone, which apparently this wasn't her choice and this was how it all ended up. Aside from that, I feel like she's making good choices. I don't know what I would do differently. I'd probably already be dead. Let's be honest. Anyway, the man sees her cat. And he's going to go to check the cat's tag. Want to make sure it's Maddie's cat. And it is. So he's like, yeah, you'll see mommy soon. He grabs his knife and he says, mommy will see you soon. Nailed to the front. And he is interrupted by getting shot in the shoulder with an arrow. Maddie is standing on the porch with the crossbow. She figured out how to load it. She runs back into the house. On the way in, she knocks out the arrow. She drops the arrow and she wants it back. She doesn't want him to have the arrow. And this, to me, this is a mistake. She's going to pay for it dearly. She reaches to, she's on the other side of the sliding door, but she reaches her hand through to try to get the arrow from the porch. And he gets there too soon and he closes the door on her arm and then he steps on her hand over and over again, which is horrific from more than one angle. First of all, it's gruesome. Her fingers are dislocated. It's gross. It's hard to look at. Ugh, I just hate that. I hate looking at her hand in this part of the film. So it's a really gruesome injury, but also she communicates with her hands. So it just, I don't know. It feels really, really hard to cope with that. I don't know, something about the fact that he's taken away her ability to communicate. I understand that there could be other options. She could type with one hand. She could, if you were in a hospital, people can find other ways to communicate with you, but it's really going to slow her down a lot, more so than it might somebody else, because you need your hands not only for the things your hands would do, but she needs it to talk to people. So she pulls her hand back. She's like sort of protecting it against her chest. She's crying out in pain. He says to her, and so that she can see it, he says, I'm coming in. She stops. She looks at him. She stands up. He stands. And she reaches into her leg wound to get some blood. She writes on the window, do it. She slams on the door. And he's not moving it. She reaches back into her leg wound. She gets more blood. She writes, coward. He's going to walk off the porch. He needs to get something, the crowbar, I think. She's going to quickly run to her laptop. She's in one of the endings of her book, she's going to type the description of the man. She's going to write to her family that she loves them, died fighting, she writes. He's getting the crowbar from the car trunk. And he starts trying to break down the sliding door and he's smashing it over and over. And it looks like it's cracking. We see these smashes in it, but it's not breaking. She shuts her laptop. She grabs a knife. She goes to the bathroom. So she runs through the bedroom to the bathroom. The door has not broken and he sees her go into the bedroom. So he's like, okay, new tactic. She locks the bathroom door. She hides right in front of the tub. We can see the layout of this. There's a tub facing the long way. Over it, there's a window. There's a small window. So she's hiding in front of it. She's got her knife up. She's ready to strike. And her vision's starting to blur. She's losing a lot of blood. We go into slow-mo. We're pretty close up on Maddie's face. We go into slow-mo and we see glass shattering from the window over the tub, and the glass is falling into the tub, and then the man drops gently down into the tub and she's still watching the door, but now he's in the tub directly behind her, and he says, you know what, I think you're holding out on me. And he pulls out his knife. He says, I bet if I hit the right spot I can make you scream. And he smiles a bit and laughs. And that felt, once again, this is the line that really makes me feel like he gets off from this. He actually does. This is a seduction as much as it is a homicide for him. Like the cat and mouse is like her playing hard to get. The way that he's delivering these lines, it just makes, and that's certainly not the real interpretation of this. Like that is not like, power and control is definitely what he's looking for, but he's getting off on this, I think. And so there's like something kind of seductive about how he's speaking these things to her. And that's like another level of disturbing for this film. says, okay, I can make you scream. He smiles, he laughs, and just the little bit of air that's like coming out of his mouth hits the back of her neck, the hairs on the back of her neck, and her senses are sharp. So she feels it and she knows he's behind her, and her eyes open wide. We see like just her eyes and they just go, oh my God, he's right there. We get this really cool overhead shot of them with like him in the tub facing forward like it's a bobsleigh, and she's sitting in front of the tub, and they both have their knives pointed in the front, but he's trying to kill her and she's like, oh, I have to find a way to get him. And so he goes to stab her, and she turns that shoulder so he stabs over her instead of into her. She has flipped the knife around and she stabs into his leg. Really cool choice in terms of how this was shot and the choreography of it. I thought that was great. So he has a knife in his leg now. He missed her. She crawls back. She crawls out of the bathroom, out of the bedroom. She limps into the living room. Her vision's really blurry now. She's going to fall to the kitchen floor against the cabinet that had all the supplies in it. The cleaning supplies, that is. So the man limps out of the bedroom. He sees Maddie sitting on the floor. It looks like she might be unconscious. He gets a little closer. Nope, she is awake. He gets close enough and she sprays like a hornet spray in his face, or the wasp killer in his face. So she burns his eyes. His eyes are going to be red for the rest of the film, which isn't going to be long. He limps away in a lot of pain. She turns on the fire alarm so he can't see, and now he can't hear because the fire alarm is really, really loud, and she's holding it as close as she can to his face, and the lights are really bright. So he's really disoriented now. And so he's going to drop the knife so he can protect his ears. And he falls back onto the end table that had the books and the picture and the corkscrew, and the corkscrew falls off. She tries to grab his knife but can't get to it. He's fighting her. He's on top of her. She's biting him. And now it's just like brute force between the two of them. He's strangling her. And we hear sound design here is a heartbeat sound that starts to get slower and slower and slower. We see visions of her as a child, visions of her with her family, just pictures, still picture moments. She's reaching, she's stretching, and she grabs the corkscrew with her good hand. She sticks it into his neck and then pulls it out. And every time he breathes, a little bit of blood starts spurting out. For a moment, when we were just hearing the heartbeat sound, we weren't hearing the fire alarm, but now the fire alarm is back. And the blood's spurting every time he breathes. And I love this. There's this one shot of him sort of like behind his shoulder, sitting on top of her, and the lights are flashing, and it's sort of a silhouette of him in the room. But every time the light is on, we can see a little bit of the silhouette of the blood spurting out. It's a cool detail. He falls on top of her. She pushes him off and he's not moving. She breathes. She frees up her hand with the corkscrew. She's a bit dazed. She coughs, and then she's going to reach into his pocket. She remembers he still has her phone. She grabs her red phone again. She dials 911, and she then falls back. She just leaves it. She leaves the phone as it is. She can't have a whole conversation. She just can't. She is not able to. She doesn't speak. But at the very least, 911 is connected to this call, and they'll know to come to her. So we see Sarah. We see shots of all of the carnage. We see Sarah dead at the bedroom window. John's dead near the porch. We see from outside the house, we see inside the lights are still flashing. And then we see Maddie opening the sliding door from far away. She comes out onto the porch and sits down. The cat comes up. She sits with her. She pets it. And she looks into the woods as we see approaching police cars and sirens. And we look into Maddie's face. Her eyes are closed. And she smiles just a little bit. Almost the exact amount of a smile that was on the man's mask earlier. Maddie lived. I mean, hopefully she moves out of her cabin in the woods. My goodness. I'd say she has a soft landing place. She has a sister she can live with. That's good. I like that for her. It's going to take a while to recover from this. It's going to take a minute for her to, she needs her hands for a lot of reasons. It's tied to how she communicates with people. It's tied to her profession. Not good. Plus every other thing that you need to do during the day. But my goodness, I just love this film so much. It's, what is it, an hour, 21 minutes or something like that. It's lean, but not too lean for a horror film. It's about, like you'll see a lot of films landing about here, but this is about how much time they felt like it needed. They didn't try to stretch it beyond that. They explored every space in this house and and spaces you didn't even know that existed, and entrances and exits you didn't know that existed. This house was used to the fullest, and then when the house was used to the fullest, they had a final battle, and Maddie came out the victor. And I do wonder who all those other people were that he killed, because surely he hasn't been able to add Sarah or John to that tally, so he's had quite a kill count at this point. But my goodness, I really appreciate Maddie. I love the fact that we got to be in her head and thinking through the scenarios with her, because it doesn't usually happen in a film. And I don't know, that could be something that people don't like, because maybe you want people to just get right into the action. But I think for me, I really liked that touch with this, to be able to say, why is she making these choices? And it helped me think that she knows her stuff. She's smart. Yeah, I love the film. And I would love to know what you think about this film. So be sure to let me know in the comments how you feel about the film. And what I'd really like to know is how scary you think this film is. Because once again, I'm desensitized to most horror films. So please take out your scary meter, because mine's busted, but yours might not be. Rate this movie from 1 to 10 in terms of how scary you think it is. 1 being, this is not a scary movie. 10 being, this is so scary. And anything in between. And let's see where this one lands for you. Now, there's not a next time necessarily, because this is Halloween. This is day 31, but this is a double feature day. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, please go and check out Ready or Not, which is a 2019 film, a horror comedy. I put it on the not too scary list. So it's a good one if you're into something that's just a fun watch. And that's EEKtober, everybody. I mean, happy EEKtober, happy October, happy Halloween, all the happy things. Get spooky, get donuts.